Hi, it is January 13th, 2020, and this is the synopsis after round 3 of court today for the Stevens case of temporary restraining order brought by Leslie and Mike Bain. And this is something that was continued over from last December when it became apparent that this was maybe more than met the eye. And so Terrence, how do you say his name? Steinhardt was representing James Stevens. He's the founder of the Christian Legal Defense Fund. Is it?
It's the Christian Legal Aid Society of Los Angeles.
There you go. And then a gentleman was retained, I guess more recently, Matthew Perot. Anyway, he was the one representing the Bains. And so round 1 was in Pasadena this morning at 8:30 a.m. and then round 2 was in around 11:30 at the Stanley Moss Courthouse downtown on Hill Street, and then round 3 happened at 1:30 this afternoon in front of the Wilshire Courthouse, which is across the street from us right now. So the Central Court, yes. And the judge was the Honorable Diana Gold Saltman, who was presiding over round 3. And she began the court. I was in the back taking notes, and she began the hearing by basically citing to the petitioners. Those are the people who were bringing the allegation that James Stevens had done something that was a violent threat toward Leslie and Mike Bain that they feared for their life over when they had a confrontation over what's happened with the campus and whether or not the Bains should have or could have done something about it, and also their role in continuing to be part of this Christian organization that has absolutely betrayed their purpose and mission and vision, and is part of the Perspectives movement, and which also is encouraging the Insider movement, which really is a very questionable line of reasoning. Anyway,
it was a civil harassment.
It was a civil harassment matter. Yeah, here's David saying it was a civil harassment matter. So anyway, Judge Gould Saltman started by citing to them the civil code, which is 527.6 B2 and 3 for the code of conduct that's required to meet the credible threat of violence, which is what you need to meet if you want to get a restraining order against someone else who's doing something to harm you. And she basically said, look, you can't even get that if there's some sort of First Amendment value, a free speech value to what is going on. And she said right off the bat, they do have a First Amendment value in this case because there is a First Amendment issue going on. There's a free speech issue happening here. And basically said in order to meet the credible threat of violence and be able to get a temporary restraining order, they can't be involved in a protected act. And this, in fact, was a protected act because there's a freedom of religion and a freedom of speech issue. There must be in order to have the act must cause, in order for them to meet the criteria that this was a credible threat of violence that required a temporary restraining order, something must have been done that would have caused a reasonable person to suffer severe emotional distress. And basically the judge came out right from the get-go and said, look, I don't see anything, even if every single point that you have in your thing is absolutely true and it's totally factual, there is nothing in here that meets that criteria that a reasonable person would suffer severe emotional distress. And the petitioner's attorney, the Bain's attorney, said, well, it caused alarm. And she said, well, it would have to cause serious, severe emotional distress, not even just serious alarm. And the judge, and they said, oh, it caused severe, it caused all sorts of, that it was causing a substantial emotional distress. And yeah, no, that's what she said. She said that the attorney for the Bains said that this caused extreme concern and extreme
ulcers. She had to take ulcer medicine.
She had to take ulcer medicine. She was taking medication. That she couldn't sleep at night. That she had severe emotional distress. That it caused her, severe concern And basically he said that this was a severe annoyance, and the basically, I'm going to call him the plaintiff attorney, because that's what you would do, because they were really the ones bringing the case. They said, well, this is a severe annoyance. We have to draw the line in the civil arena, that this was a wrong thing. And there was the confrontations and posting on Facebook, and the judge basically said public confrontations are completely protected as long as they don't use fists or are threatening in their verbiage. And basically the judge.
She also says something to the effect that okay, so you're saying she has all these severe things to say. Okay, so do you have the physician's statement? He said, no, I don't have any physician statement. Then
yeah.
Then what?
Right. They said that. Yeah, I'm getting that. I didn't quite get. Yeah. It's in there.
Okay.
And so basically, the judge said, look, the seriousness that needed to be there to be able to get a restraining order is not pled in this case. There's nowhere in all of their paperwork, all of their posts, all of their reposts of everything that was on Facebook, everything that was done, all the videos. None of that shows something to the level that would have to be there for them to get a temporary restraining order. And so basically, then the Bain's attorney said, well, they were shouting. It's like, he can shout. People are allowed to shout in public. Even if he said, oh, it was seriously annoying. It's like, well, look, if she was, that she was sleepless, that she was taking meds, that she had severe emotional distress. And the judge said, do you have a medical doctor that can testify to that here today? And they said, no, they didn't. And she's all, well, I don't see a clear and convincing evidence, and the attorney for the Bain said, well, I have testimony from witnesses that they were shouting through his earphones. He could hear it, and he heard the husband came out with a confrontation, and that they're stalking. And then the judge stopped them, and he said, hey, look, stalking is a specific criminal act. Someone who is like in the same area, walking in a public area, is not stalking. And then the attorney for the Bain said, oh, he said, you are my enemy. And the judge said, he can say that. You can even be his enemy. It's like, it is his, it's his town too. He can walk around. And then the Bain's attorney said, oh, I have a closed circuit TV video that shows this. And it's like, and they were trying to figure out how to look at it on Facebook, and the judge said, well, why can't he not post it on Facebook? He can take video on the street anytime he wants. He can do it every day, and it's not harassment. And then the Bain's attorney said, well, he posted a manifesto dating 20 years ago. He was either asked to leave his residence or he was evicted, and so he has this 20-year grudge. He's holding a 20-year grudge. And the judge said he's allowed to hold a 20-year grudge, and he's allowed to talk about it, and he's allowed to declare a manifesto as long as he doesn't threaten violence. He said, look, if he's really saying something that's not true, if he's really saying something about you might have a defamation clause if he's lying about your client, but you certainly don't have a harassment clause. And by the way, he wasn't lying. We have plenty of proof. If you guys are thinking about bringing a harassment case next, and I know you're watching this, you Frontier Ventures, U.S. Center for World Mission people, you know very well we have plenty of real evidence. You really don't want to touch that one. Okay, and so then the judge said, look, even if every day everything that the witness said in the Bain step-in thing was true, even if they're not fudging any of their data, he said there is nothing in this that meets the definition of harassment. She said, for example, if it was 3 a.m. and he was banging on the door or videotaping through the windows, then they might have a reasonable, case for harassment that would need a TRO. But, he said, look, you didn't find a horse's head in your bed at night. There was nothing like that going on. She was really funny. She was really funny, actually. And then the Bain's attorney said, well, there's a pattern here. It's not good that it's directed at people so they don't feel safe. And so they wanted to play the video for the judge. She was very kind, and she watched them play the video, and she looked at it very carefully and said, well, yeah, I see people kind of interacting and gesturing a little bit, but I don't see anything that makes me change my mind.
He's keeping 3 feet away.
Right. He's like, this is a reasonable, space. There's nothing in here, and there was no sound on the video, and it's like, okay, well, we'll play the other one, and so they played the one that James, and actually that Elizabeth took that had James, and she played it, and then she listened to it, and she basically said, there's nothing here that's a problem, really. She basically said, I see the respondent coming toward the driveway on a sidewalk between the petitioner and the respondent. They're not too close. They're interacting. There's some gesturing. Was there anything else to see? She basically said, do you have anything else? It's like, and the Baines attorney said, well, in the clip we have, she backed up. It's like, well, and then Terry called that Exhibit 1. The actual conversation with the audio gave a flash drive to the court, and it shows how it doesn't. There's not really shouting it. She played it and she listened to it, and basically it talks about where James is asking, are you with perspectives, and then it ends up in the end about fearing the Lord and following His statutes. And I really liked that James also mentioned, Mike Bain, you don't know about accountability. And actually that's a very true statement. A lot of the people at the U.S. Center for World Missions / Frontier Ventures / William Carey International University know nothing about what real accountability looks like. Because
I didn't even say that first.
Right.
He said, you're going to be held accountable for me.
That's right. He threw it at you, and then it's like,
I
no.
just said, no.
You turned it around on him. Yeah, and basically you finished with fear the Lord and follow His commandments. And then the Baines attorney was saying, well, those are serious words, very concerning words. It's a pattern of conduct. And the judge said, this is not even a close case. This is not even close.
Civil harassment is.
This doesn't come anywhere close to civil harassment. I'm not against any of the things he said. He can post every minute of every day. Escalations mean that his actions are becoming severe, and there are threats of violence.
There you go.
If it's not, let's see. And then the Baines was saying something about how it was about his words and his tone and this and that. And it's like, look, and they're like, oh, it's not even his place of work. It's not even his location for his work. And the judge said it doesn't matter if it is or it isn't. He was on a public sidewalk. He was allowed to be there. Basically, she said the matter is dismissed.
Oh, but before that, he said, even if your offices were open, it's open to the public. He had a right to even come in and do it inside.
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly. Well, because they're soliciting money from the public, and so if it's a place of business where people are coming, then you have every right to be there every moment of every day, as long as you're not threatening violence or actually being violent, which he's never been. And the only violence that's been is the violence against our voices.
This is a complete lack of understanding of what civil harassment is.
Right. But you see, what it is you broke the code of silence. Just like, the Save the Campus crew did. So that's why we get vilified, and this was just another bullying way to try to shut down the voices that have been confronting this organization. And what are the Baines really concerned about? They're concerned that their donors are going to find out that they've been working for an abusive organization that's been fraudulently asking for money from the Christian public to quote unquote do ministry, when they just sit around and have administrative meetings, and they're not really doing much of any sort of real ministry. And at the same point in time, they're killing all the real collaboration and all the real ministry that might have been happening there on the campus. And they're afraid that their donors and their churches that are supporting them are going to find out the truth about what's really happening in that little office building that's left after they've betrayed the vision and mission and everybody and all of the Christian work that was happening on that campus and all of the things that were going on. That's what they're really worried about.
So it was dismissed?
It was dismissed. In other words, basically, the judge gave him a spanking. The judge really gave him a spanking.
Did Terry have to do anything?
Well, he's gonna.
He put his brief in.
He put his brief in, and he hardly had to say. He had a great brief. He gave a good context and a good background, and he hardly had to say a word. Basically, the judge did whatever job he would have needed to do for him. She got it. She totally got it. That this was a completely frivolous matter. That this was not a clear-cut case of harassment, and that they did not meet the burden that they needed to meet in order to be able to bring any sort of real a restraining order against James and Elizabeth Stevens. So, we're totally, all of us are free to wander the sidewalks and to confront whoever we want to and ask the hard questions about why in the world didn't you guys do something about this? You knew this was wrong and you chose to remain silent, and don't think you're not going to be held accountable for that one way or another.
Accountability is coming.
That's
you want
right.
to say anything?
I just want to say.
You want to give him the...
here, let me give you the mic.
Oh.
I'm giving you the mic.
I just want to say that one way or another, here I can just hold it. So much of the Christian community does not, it's so prevalent, this idea of the code of silence and no one speaking out against wrongdoing. And wrongdoing isn't just the people that are doing it. Wrongdoing is also those who stay silent when they know really wrong things are being done. Right. And in this community, in the U.S. Center for World Mission, DBA, Frontier Ventures, what's really clear is that this community has participated in breaking covenants with donors for decades. And it's very sad. And accountability from the Lord is coming. Yes. And what we believe and what we know is going to come next is accountability with the state of California, with the Franchise Tax Board, the IRS, the County Assessor's Office. There's lots to talk about. Lots of violations and lots to talk about that they know. Those board members know that they've done incorrectly. The Baines know. It. Leslie Bain was on the phone with the attorneys when we talked about all the problems with the housing allowances, the property taxes, the way so many people are being paid.
And if you cook the books now, you aren't going to be able to hide this.
Right. If you cook the books now, you aren't going to be able to hide it. We already know what's going on. We know who to contact. And so that's going to come down. And it is coming down. And I feel sad. I feel deeply grieved about what's happened to the mission community. I feel deeply grieved about a place of collaboration to reach the world for Jesus. From my opinion right now, the U.S. Center for World Mission doesn't even have, when you abuse people to accomplish, specifically, especially your donors, to reach the world for Jesus, you've lost your voice once you get to wherever it is you're going. You don't have anything to say to those people. And so that is the unfortunate place that the U.S. Center for World Mission, DBA Frontier Ventures, and William Carey International University Frontier Mission Fellowship finds itself in today. And so, it was, I couldn't even believe when I heard what was happening here. Do they really believe, did Leslie and Mike Bain really think it was okay to try to silence James Stevens' voice on a public sidewalk? Did you really think that was okay?
Well, especially since they already knew that it was a problem. We've had conversations with the Baines. They already knew that there were problems with the center. They agreed with it, but they were afraid. They didn't want to be thrown under the bus because they still benefit from being a part of this predatory system that preys upon the unsuspecting Christian public and asks for donations. And now that they've liquidated the assets, maybe they think that they're not going to need their donors anymore, but think again.
Yeah. Be warned.
Think again.
Something's coming. Something big. A big storm.
And no, this isn't a physical threat of violence, but it is accountability.
Over and out.